What if you cashed out your 401k, paid that penalty, but then were able to transform that money into millions of dollars into real estate? So Rich Summers did just that. We'll be breaking down exactly how he cashed out his retirement and ended up buying $50 million in real estate, all coming up next. Welcome to the Cash Flow Happy Hour podcast. I'm your host, Josh Baldovino, and on this show, you can join us live as we interview investors and share how they are increasing their cash flow. So grab a drink and let's get into it. Well, Rich, man, thanks so much for jumping on the show with me.
Yeah, Josh, my man, I appreciate you having me on, and I'm excited to dig into this conversation today.
I've seen your journey on social media, and for those who haven't already, obviously I will link all of those down below in the show notes and description. But what is the quick 30-second origin story?
Yeah, I grew up middle class. My mom is immigrant from Taiwan. My dad grew up in Holland. They both know the value of working hard and saving your money. And I was taught from a young age to go to school, get good grades, go to college, and get a job. And for the most part, that's what I did. Got into sales while I was going to college. I sold cell phones at the mall. And then I went on to sell used cars for Nissan. And that was my first taste of what it was like to control your paycheck. And I really excelled at it. I really enjoyed the sales side of it. And I wanted to sell commercial real estate. And so I got out of college in 2008 and I interviewed with a couple commercial real estate brokerages, CBRE and Grubb and Ellis. And as the economy was starting to tank at that time, and they both told me, hey, we love your hustle, but this is not a good time to get into the industry. And they pulled those internship positions. And so I found myself on a car lot wondering, what am I going to do with my life? And I backed into a job with the federal government as an air traffic controller and didn't think twice. I took it, went out to Oklahoma City for my training, and I ended up in a town called Palmdale, California, which is the armpit of California for any of your listeners that don't know where that is. But it's not the greatest place to be, but I ended up doing 6 years there and 11 years overall as a air traffic controller. And along the way, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I just woke up one day and I was like, you know what? I got to figure this out and I got to go do my own thing. And I just became obsessed. I started reading books, listening to podcasts. I started going to networking events. I started a meetup before I even owned any real estate. And that's all I did while I was still working the full-time job. And about 9 months into it, I decided to cash out my 401k and I pulled out a home equity line of credit against a condo that I had here. And that was my seed money to get started. First deal was 11 units in Cincinnati. And shortly after that, I partnered with my two partners that I have today. Actually, we just broke up. We can talk about that later. But that was 32 units that we JV'd on in Indianapolis, both C-class properties. And shortly after that, launched a podcast, started interviewing high-level apartment operators and investors. We met our mentors on that podcast, and we ended up co-sponsoring a couple larger deals. We learned how to raise money. And now, fast forward today, I own about $50 million of real estate, quit that job. I have a couple companies in the space, and we're going after boutique hotels right now. And we also have about 31 short-term rental listings as well.
That is probably the best summary I think that you can give. And there's a lot to unpack there. Let's go into one. I think just real quick, you jumped right into commercial real estate. Were you comfortable into that just because you had that commercial real estate internship? Is that why?
Yeah, those first two deals we bought before we had that mentorship. And the reason I went into commercial real estate with the apartments is because as I was educating myself over those 9 months, the more I read, the more I realized people can start with single family and they can start with fix and flip. But the end game for a lot of people was to get into commercial real estate because that's where the true wealth is built. So I thought, you know what, why start with single family if I can just go straight into multifamily? And so that's what I decided to do.
And so to get that deal, you cashed out your 401k. What was the thought process behind that there? Because that is a not normal, normal move.
You know what? I had been investing in that 401k for, at that time, like 8 years. And yeah, it had grown like they said it was, but I knew it was never going to make me wealthy. And at the end of the day, like there's a lot of things that society teaches you about a 401k and playing it safe and diversifying that's just not true. It's just not really how you win in real life. And yeah, it goes up in value. And yes, when you turn age 59 and a half, you might have some money in there, but dude, I could die tomorrow. What am I going to do with this money at 59 and a half? That is so long. It's a long ways away. So to me, the more I learned about real estate, the more I needed like capital. And I was like, I need to do this. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. And I said, I'm just going to deplete this account and I'm going to go all in. And I think what I've learned thus far is I continue to grow. Like all these little things that we do are scary. Like cashing out the 401k, it's scary. But once you do it, you're like, oh, it's not that bad. And you buying that first 11 unit deal was a little bit scary. But once I did it and I saw it worked out, you realize that it's okay. All these things are scary, but they're just limiting beliefs.
Yeah, I think that was something that I shared yesterday on Instagram was your post
Mhm,
about how you cashed it out. You
mhm,
ended up transforming it into, I guess today you have 50 million under management. But you also, what I liked about that video specifically was that you broke down what your like net percentage was, and that made it really tangible. So
mhm.
if anyone who's listening to this and wants to see that post, I will also link that down below because that was just I got a lot of like really positive reactions from that too. I'm sure that you got that went viral for you. So
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that, my man. Yeah, it's something that most people think is risky, but and a lot of people told me it was risky. Even my own parents, they told me not to do it. But at the end of the day, looking back, all those risks that people allude to are real. So put some weight on them. But on the other side of the balance scale is another risk, and it's this: I could be 80 years old one day, laying in my bed, staring at the ceiling, kicking myself because I never fucking tried anything in life. How about that risk? Because that's a risk too that no one talks about.
yeah, no, totally. And I think I was talking about your family feedback. That's something that
Mm,
I've gotten to jumping
hmm.
into it is like my second deal ever, the perfect burr. But getting the perfect burr was a 15% hard money loan. And as
Sure.
I was telling my uncles about this, you're crazy.
Yeah.
But they've also never done it before. And so it's taking those with a grain of salt. I'm sure you had the same thing. So I guess if someone's thinking about using their 401k as their seed money, what would you tell them?
I'd say educate yourself, and if you're gonna go into real estate investing and you're educated and you're right around the right people, go all in. Don't just take a little bit out, don't take a loan, like, just deplete it, and, yeah, there's taxes, penalties, and fees, but if you're burning these properties like you just alluded to, your ROI is infinite once you pull your money back out, right? And yes, you're gonna pay penalties and fees, but if you strategically withdraw that at the right time, let's say you withdraw the money in January of 2022, for example, you technically don't have to pay the taxes on that money until if you get an extension till October of 2023. So that gives you essentially 18 months to figure it out and get that money back. And so what I did is I obviously had the penalties and the fees, but with the extension, you can actually leverage the IRS's money and use that to leverage into more real estate and then just make sure you burr out of that deal within 18 months and you're good.
I have never this is the first time like, I think about the strategy, but not even
Yeah.
thinking about the extension behind it of
Yeah.
basically leveraging just kicking
Yeah,
it down the road just because you're not
for sure.
ready to
And
file
so if
yet.
yeah, and so, like, for your listeners out there, if they're considering pulling out their 401k money and it's November or December, just wait till January 1 and then do it then, because that you'll defer your taxes for an entire 12 months.
And then just to break down concrete numbers, obviously check with your CPA, all that stuff for the actual penalties, but I
Yeah.
guess in your specific case, what was your penalty that you had to pay, and what did you actually get out of it?
Yeah, I had a 10% penalty to the Fed, a 2.5% penalty to the state of California, and then everything else was taxed as ordinary income. And it's crazy to me that you would even pay penalties on money that this is your hard-earned money that you worked for, labor, time that you'll never get back. And for them to say, "Hey, we're going to penalize you for accessing this money," is fucking crazy to me. Like how is it normal in our society that they're going to penalize you for accessing your own money? Think about going to the bank. You go to Wells Fargo or Bank of America to withdraw from your checking, and they say, "Hey, we're going to penalize you 10% just for accessing this money." That's crazy. Like, how is that even normal? You know what I mean?
And so you took the penalty,
Mhm.
how annoying they are, you took
Yeah.
it, and you ended up creating what from it?
Financial freedom and generating a lot of wealth. And so like that one 401k after taxes and fees, I had about $250,000. And I was able to convert that into an 11 unit property that I own without any of my own money in the deal. I've since refied that out. We bought the 32 unit, which I JV'd on. We actually went full cycle on that. A couple of years later, we sold it. I 1031 exchanged those proceeds into another property in Scottsdale, which I'm actually refinancing out right now. And through that one little chunk of 250k for your audience, I was able to convert that into about $5 million worth of real estate.
And that's
Yeah,
not divide that's after partnership divisions and everything, that's you.
I do one of those properties. I have 20% partner,
Okay.
so my net's probably a little bit less than that. But generally speaking, $5 million of real estate from that little 250k nest egg. So that's the power of it, and that was just in a matter of 3 years.
Yeah, that's God, that's crazy. Okay, as we're breaking down the moves that you've made, first
Mhm,
one obviously is a big shock to people, especially just getting in. If you're
mhm,
in the real estate community, it doesn't seem that crazy because a lot of people have done that.
mhm,
To the everyday person, that's different. I'd say the deal that you're also doing isn't they're not beginner deals. You've syndicated some multifamily. You're now in luxury Airbnbs. I guess run me through the thought process. Why multifamily first off?
Yeah, so multifamily I was really into. Obviously, it's a great proven asset class. People there's two things and that people are never going to be replaced, right? So technology is always constantly evolving. There's a lot of like startup companies that boom and then they bust a few years later because things are just evolving so quickly. But there's two things in life that will never be replaced, and that's basically the need for shelter and a place for people to store their belongings. That's never going to change, right? And so multifamily is that. So it's a time tested asset. But that said, it's overheated right now. There's just everyone's looking for the same assets. There's mentorship programs out there, coaching programs. Everyone's telling you, hey, you can raise money and go buy large scale apartments. But you know what, man? We were out there underwriting deals, and you would have to underwrite 300 deals to find one or two good ones. And
Mm.
those one or two good ones would have 50 offers. And by the time you get to best and final, you're overpaying for those assets. And so I felt like it was just a waste of time. And so we're making a huge pivot right now, and we're actually going all in on the boutique hotel space.
And so why boutique hotels versus more luxury short rentals?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I do love the luxury short-term rentals. Obviously, I got one out there in Scottsdale, which is fun. That was a really fun project. And the more like mainstream short-term rentals, the ones that are going to make you 100 grand a year gross, it just doesn't excite me anymore. So to me, I'm all about the luxury because that it's the same amount of work to do a 3 or 4 bedroom property in, let's say, Memphis, Tennessee, right? That's going to bring in 100 grand than it is to go take down a multi-million dollar deal in Scottsdale that can bring in 600, 700 grand, right? In terms of operations, it's the same amount of work. So you might as well go after the bigger deal, in my opinion. And then also with the luxury, you're bringing a unique product to the marketplace, right? So like in Scottsdale, for example, there's 6,000 short-term rentals in that market alone. You go buy a 4 bedroom and throw in some IKEA furniture, you're going to get crushed. But if you go buy a larger property that's 7, 8, 9 bedrooms and you put in a bunch of different features that are unique to the marketplace, now you're going to actually do really well. And so I think that's key. I'm all in on the luxury stuff, but why boutique hotels? Right now, there's a lot of mom and pop owners that own these hotels. They've owned these hotels for 30, 40 years. These things have not been renovated in 30 or 40 years. They have zero marketing, zero technology, no social media presence. They're not on Airbnb, they're not on Verbo. And we can go in and renovate these properties. And with my management company, Fortune Cribs, we can operate these properties remotely, free of on site management, which allows us to bring on an additional room online because traditionally a lot of these the hotels will have an innkeeper and the innkeeper will live in one of the rooms. And so now we get to bring an additional room online. We get to operate this property a lot leaner. And then we get to implement all of our marketing strategies with Airbnb, Verbo, hotel.com, booking.com. And by doing that, we're able to 4x, 5x the revenue and of these properties in just a 12 to 18 month span.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely and I feel like that's almost the new kid on the block. I feel like
Mm,
maybe 2023, the next year, the boutique hotel
yeah.
concept will definitely start to get more mainstream. I almost feel like midterm rentals
Yeah.
was a term this year for the short-term rental operators.
Mhm.
Boutique
Yeah.
hotels would be for next year.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was actually at BP Con last week here in San Diego, and everyone I met was like, "Oh, I'm doing short-term rentals, but like my wife and I want to learn how to do boutique hotels." Everyone was saying that, and I think the host of the Bigger Pockets podcast, I think they're buying boutique hotels now, and so it's just it's going to be mainstream. And so I told the team, I'm like, guys, like we don't have time to waste. Like we got to buy as many as we can in the next 12 months before this becomes mainstream. So we're putting together a team right now, some A+ players, basically all stars in every position, and we're going to go out there and we're going to buy a bunch of boutique hotels in the next 12 months. Man, I can't wait.
I like it. If you're listening to this, it's gonna may take me a week to edit this. So I guess Rich, you have a week head start, probably a little bit more, but
Yeah, no, I'm excited though. It should be fun, man.
and I think that was a thought that went through our minds as well, too, as we're thinking about pivoting away from Airbnbs. I think
Mhm.
one thing that's also really exciting about boutique hotels is that you can get them zoned for commercial lodging, which means all of these short-term rental permit issues that a lot of cities are having, just you don't have
Yeah.
to worry about it.
That's the main thing is as long as you're buying a boutique hotel that has the commercial zoning and the hotel designator, you are protected from any of the residential regulations pertaining to short-term rentals. And it just takes a lot of the risk off the table. But also, the other thing with short-term rentals is the neighbors. The neighbors are just not all of them. Some are cool, but most of them are
Mhm.
just a pain in the ass, and you got to kiss their ass. But with hotels, neighbor complains, you can just tell them to fuck off. Like we're a hotel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, and but I'd say for those boutique hotels, there's usually some separation or they've already been living next to a hotel for how long? So
Exactly. It's like you buy a house next to the airport and you complain about the airplane noise. No, that airport's been there for 130 years, dude. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Same thing, same concept. But the last thing I'll say about boutique hotels is you can force your appreciation because it's commercial real estate. So as you
mm.
increase that NOI, you're forcing your appreciation. Whereas with a short-term rental, it doesn't matter how much money it makes, it's still valued what that house is across the street. You know what I mean?
No, totally. And because everything's just based off how well can you run it. And if you are all of a
Yeah.
sudden adding a room out of nowhere that
Yeah.
goes on market, that's
Yeah.
huge by
Yeah.
itself. You can pretty much make some decent return just doing that.
Yeah, and I haven't made a reel about this yet, but I'm gonna make a reel about this topic as soon as I get into the new office. But the coolest thing is, so we just bought the first boutique hotel 2 months ago, but the coolest thing is how we structured it with the investors.
Hmm.
We bought this property and we own 100% of the property day one without using any of our own money. How does that work? We structured the investors into the deal. We didn't give them any equity. The seller financed 70% of the purchase price. And so we needed to go raise money for the down payment, reno costs, holding costs, and some reserves. And so how we were able to do that is we created an investor LLC that lent basically a promissory note to the hotel LLC that was personally guaranteed by us as the operators. We paid them a fixed return, paid monthly, and you get your money back when we refinance the deal in year two. And we were like, we don't know how the investors are going to like this. There's no equity, but we gave them a high return. We gave them a 20% fixed return and expect your money back in 1 to 2 years when we refi the property and complete our business plan. It filled up in less than 24 hours. They loved it. And so I was like, holy cow, this is crazy. We just bought this property and own 100% of it day one without using any of our own money. That's crazy.
It's just a pref return period, but it's a great one. And then
Mhm.
you get all the upside on the refi or exit, which is
Yeah. Well, we'll take all the risk, right? We're taking all the risk. The investors are happy because they get a fixed 20% return paid monthly. And if you're a believer that there's going to be some deals out there in the marketplace a year, 2 years from now, that's a much better option than stashing your money in the bank. You know what I mean?
And did their return start on that first month?
Yeah, the first month. Actually,
Dude.
that first, so we closed August 9th. And so September 1, they got prorated for August and they got full for September. So they ended up getting like almost 2 months with that first distribution, which is crazy.
I
But they're
mean,
stoked. They're stoked.
yeah.
And without them, like none of this would be possible. But the cool thing about boutique hotels, you can't do this in multifamily because all the value add has been sucked dry out of all those assets. And so with boutique hotels, you can buy a $1.5 million property and in 12 months turn it into a $5 or $6 million property. By doing that, whenever we go to refinance, we'll use the new loan proceeds to pay off the seller and to pay off all the investors. And if done correctly, we should be putting money in our pockets as well and still owning 100%, which is crazy.
Jeez.
It's crazy, dude.
That's
You
magic.
Yeah, you can refi into SBA loans. As long as it's stabilized and cash flowing, you
Mhm.
can refinance into a SBA loan, and these SBA lenders will go up to 85, and sometimes 90% on the cash out. Think about that.
Dude, that's huge.
It's insane.
Yeah. And God, good job. Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this episode, please give it a like. If you want to see more like this, of course, subscribe. Now back to the show. I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
So how long do you think it's going to take you to get all the rehab and start to operating the way you want it to be?
Yeah, so we closed August 9th. We closed down the property, shut down the property October 3rd. So it's just a little over a week ago. And they're rocking and rolling, man. I'm using the same team that did the rehab at my Scottsdale project. They're actually based out there in Phoenix, but they drove the entire team up to Northern California. These guys are living on the hotel and they're away from their families until this project is done. And so guess what these guys are doing? They're working nights, weekends. They're just like pounding this thing out so they can go back home.
Mhm.
The contractor actually let me know recently. He goes, we're gonna be done by Thanksgiving. And they started October 3rd. How crazy is that? That's like
Wow.
complete revamp, exterior, interiors, all new kitchens, flooring, vanities, all new design, furnishing, all in less than 2 months.
And this isn't a brand new market, right? Because you haven't done a deal in this market yet.
Brand new market for us. Yeah. Coastal, beachfront, but very rural. This is up by the Oregon coast.
But have you used this
Beautiful.
contractor before?
Yeah, he did my whole Scottsdale project. You saw the photos of that
Mhm.
project, right? Yeah, he did
Yeah.
that entire project. He's got a big company. He's got 100 employees. They're all in house. So electricians, plumbers, that's all in house. He doesn't hire anything out contractor wise. But he's big time. He was doing all the. Remember when Zillow was doing all the home flipping? He was their
Was
guy.
this
And
gotcha.
when they went under, he's fuck. I need work. It's been a good partnership so far, and I'm going to continue to use him for all these hotel renovations moving forward, especially if they can go in and basically knock out these renos in 2 months for us. That's insane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. If he's gonna need some work on our RV park afterwards, we close Thanksgiving. Right on. Okay, so you've raised a little bit of money. What's been your magic sauce? What's the formula to raising and syndicating?
Yeah, just being a good person. But the first deal is like you go into friends and family, right?
Mhm.
That's the most challenging raise is that first one because people want to They want to know that you're going to take good care of their money and you haven't really done it before. And that first one was tough, but we got it done. I think the biggest key though is consistency with, obviously, a podcast is very helpful. We had I just broke up from that multifamily takeoff podcast, and we can talk about that here in a little bit, but it was every Monday morning at 6 a.m. consistently. And a lot of our investors, they're not listening to that podcast, but they see us consistent on there, having conversations with big players in the space. And that gives them a little bit more confidence to invest. And obviously, throughout the drip campaigns, weekly newsletters, the meetups, hosting those meetups are big. Social media. I didn't start getting into social media until 4 months ago, but I should have a long time ago, but I didn't. And, but yeah, those are all the main things, to me at least, in being a good person and just being a friendly, good dude that's gonna just an honest shaker. And I think that's the main thing. I think people, they want to do business with those they know and trust. And now when we go raise, it's okay, we've been taking care of these investors, we've done 3 raises now, and now they're like, they just start introducing you to their friends and family, and it just like becomes a lot easier.
Man, I like it. I do want to talk about the breakup, but I'll save that for a little bit later.
Sure.
Since you mentioned social media, the podcast and all that stuff, and you only started 4 months ago, why did it take you so long to start? And you're already really good at it, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I think, honestly, I just kept putting it off. And I think with social media, you got to treat it like a business, and you got to allocate time to put out content, and you just got to stay consistent. And if you don't treat it like a business and don't allocate that time for it every single month, you're going to fall behind, and you're going to feel like it's going to feel more like a job. But, and I think the other reason I didn't get into it earlier is because I was like worried what other people would think. And I think a lot of people never get started because of that. And I just started posting one day. I just started putting out content, and I actually lost, my followers started going down for the first 2 weeks because like a lot of people that like know me from high school, like they don't want to see this real estate stuff. It doesn't interest them. And so then you start losing followers. Fuck, like it's not working out. I just stayed consistent, and it's been like 4 months now, and now I'm starting to get some good traction. It's been fun, and now I actually really enjoy it. It's like a game. It's, I wonder like what I could put together today that will like actually people will find interesting. And that's really what it is. And one of the biggest takeaways I have is like, Gary Vee says, oh, like post 3 times a day, post 4 or 5 times a day, just hammer out the volume. I disagree. Like Gary Vee has a lot of great things, but I disagree with that because I see a lot of people that put out a lot of volume, but they have 0 engagement because they're like, by them putting out a lot of volume, they're sacrificing the quality of the content that they're putting out. So I would say, instead of putting out volume, focus on putting out decent, good quality pieces of content that people are going to find interesting enough to save and share. Because I found the reels that did the best for me have the most numbers of saves and shares. It's not really about the likes and the comments. It's all about the saves. People hit the save button, the algorithm's going to start putting you out.
Yeah, no, obviously engagement is everything. That's
Yeah.
the only thing that really matters.
Yeah.
I will say the one counterpoint I will bring to that
Uh-huh.
is that I think quality is the most important. But when you're starting out, especially if you've never posted consistently in any sense, like just posting something
Yeah.
and getting yourself comfortable
It's
of
better than nothing.
hitting send,
Yeah.
people will perfect it to a T to they'll never end up posting it.
That is true. That is a good point. I think you got to get past that limiting belief of, man, like everyone's going to care what I put out there. But at the end of the day, no one really cares. You know what I mean? You just got to put it out there. Who cares what anyone thinks? And I think I agree, like in the sense, like the more you post, the less you give a fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is what it is.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you just get a thicker skin, and
You do.
and you start getting the hate comments roll in. You're like, man, how can I
Yeah.
get more of those next month?
Yeah. No, you're exactly right, man. It's definitely fun. Yeah, I love it. But to your point, man, there's people that post 3, 4 times a day religiously and they don't have much engagement. But I know people with big followings that post 3 times a week and they just put out 3 good quality pieces every week. They gain a lot of traction by doing that as well. All it takes is 1 or 2 reels to go viral and you'll start getting a lot of followers out of it.
Yeah. And especially if you're just posting, you never know what's actually going to work for you until you try all the different genres, all the different types.
Yeah.
And so,
Do it all. Do it all and see what your audience likes. I think now after 4 months of content, I see what works and doesn't work. Oddly, like my audience, they love these like how-to whiteboard videos. So that's cool. And I'm a visual learner, so I actually enjoy doing the whiteboard stuff.
Yeah. And it's probably a lot easier to produce because you're just scribbling on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
But then they get to see behind the scenes of your office and kind of the thought process, and you make it simple. So I like it.
I'm excited. We're moving into a new office this afternoon. And actually, this is the last podcast recording I'm going to have in this office with this backdrop. This office served us very well. But if you take a look, I'll show you a little tour. It's a tiny little office. It's like probably 300 square feet, maybe 250. It's like a nice closet. But we're moving to this whole new office. I'll show you over here. See that red brick building through the window?
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah. Yep. So it's gonna be
So we
inside
got the
there.
whole top floor of that building. That's our new office.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
you got the penthouse, huh?
Yeah, we got the penthouse, man. It's 2,300 square feet. It's got 22-foot ceilings. We're going to be able to do our own podcast studio and set there. I encourage the girls to launch their own podcast. So my team's going to have their own podcast as well, and we're going to be able to grow quickly in that office. So I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, there's something about just having a space to create
Mm.
and have it always set up the way that you want it to.
Yeah.
That's also separated. That is like a game changer. I've been trying to think because I'm thinking about the agency concept. Could we make a warehouse or just a creator studio, almost like a WeWork for creators only, but have cameras and lights already set up so someone can just come in and literally just press record, and if they need to, drop the SD card at the front desk and come
There's
back.
a big need for that, man. And honestly, like I thought about it, like with this new podcast set that we're building out, I was thinking about we could, as another source of revenue on nights and weekends when we're not using it, we could rent it out to third party people that want to come in and record podcasts and that sort of thing. So we might look into, we'll see. But right now the focus is getting my new show going and then getting this new startup company off the ground. And that's Summers Capital. And that's the entity that's going to go and buy a bunch of real estate.
I like it. I like it. Yes, I mean, if you pure space that, I have no doubt it would get booked up all the time for sure, especially because nobody has it already.
Yeah. Where are you located?
I'm in San Jose.
Okay. We'll have to get you down here to San Diego to one of our meetups sometime, man.
No, I'd love to. I'm going to start traveling more next year.
Okay.
That is, I've already told the wife that there's going to be things I want to go to a lot more. We have two small kids, but
okay. Tell your wife, look, honey, I'm going to go down to San Diego for a day, hang out with Rich Summers, and go on a yacht and go check out his meetup, Cash Flow and Cocktails.
So to get that, now my wife would also have to come. Otherwise,
bring her, man. It's adults only, though. I don't know if the kids could come.
We'll find a babysitter.
Okay. All right.
That'll happen.
Bring her out, man. Cash Flow and Cocktails on the water. Let's go.
All right. I like it. I will hold you to it. We'll make it happen next year.
Yeah,
We'll do a podcast on the yacht, a follow-up.
Perfect. We'll do a live one.
Okay, we're talking about marketing. The last couple questions I want to ask is, now that you've been posting more, how has social media impacted your business?
Dude, it's crazy. So many crazy just like leads of investors and people that like just opportunities. Like I'm launching this new show, and my first episode I recorded with Tariq El Moussa, and that relationship came from Instagram. Like he started following me. He saw one of my reels and started following me, and so I just DM'd him, and I was telling him about my new show, blah blah. He's, dude, let's do it. And he's like, why don't you come up to my house and we'll record it in my living room? I'm like, cool. So that episode 2 I recorded with this NFL guy, Cliff, 10-year NFL vet, Super Bowl champ. He was a Pro Bowler for the Seahawks. He started following me because he saw some of my content. And so I just DM'd him and we started connecting, and I flew up to Seattle, recorded episode 2. So it's just, you never know what it's going to lead to. And to give you an example, that guy, Cliff, he's amazing, by the way. He's like, I'm a big San Diego Padres fan. They're in the playoffs right now against the Dodgers. But he goes, hey, Blake Snell, who is one of the starting pitchers for the Padres, he actually pitches tomorrow night. He goes, that's one of my boys. He's from Seattle. He goes, as soon as the season's over, I want to connect you, because he's getting into real estate investing. So now I can get Blake on the show in my new podcast set. But Blake is connected with Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. And so you can just see how it snowballs just from that one Instagram and Tariq following me from one of my reels, right? Another example is I was actually recently traveling out in Europe, and I'm really big into sailing. And I follow a bunch of sailing pages, and this one guy has been sailing around the world on his boat for 4 years. And he has no idea who I am, but I was following him. And I noticed he was in the Greek islands when I was out there in Mykonos, and I just DM'd him. And he invited me. He's like, hey, I'm sailing the Greek islands to Turkey. Do you want to just come with? And I was like, dude, I'd love to. And so next thing you know, I'm sailing on this fucking dude's 50-foot yacht through the Greek islands, all because of Instagram. That's the power of Instagram.
Yeah, it's, if you're not already posting, and then you have zero excuse to say why aren't opportunities coming to you, because that is the easiest way. You start small, obviously, and you've had how many different podcast episodes with Pack 3.
Yeah.
And now you're obviously a pro at it, and then you know what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it just, people get to see you in whatever way. You can control the narrative because it's your page, and they pre-vet you, of course, because that's what people do now. They just pull up your Instagram first off, and then you can shoot the DM, and you have way better chance of success once you actually have a little bit of traction.
100%. And so I had this epiphany recently when I was traveling, and I just realized, like, I think I saw an Alex Hermosi post, and he talked about this. And he said, if you look at the most successful entrepreneurs out there, a lot of them are not the best business people. They just have audiences. Conor McGregor, for example, starts Proper 12 Whiskey. It's valued at $600 million, and he's a UFC fighter. He's not a business guy, but he's got an audience. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, he's got a tequila brand that's valued at $4 billion. The guy's like an actor, right? He's not a business guy. And then this is the best example of them all: is Kylie Jenner became a billionaire at age 20. She probably doesn't know much about business, but she's got an audience. And so what I realized is people like to subscribe to personalities, not companies. And so if you can build an audience and you have back end products to monetize it, you can make more money than God. And the last thing I'll say about social media is this: I see a lot of people like just starting to build their audience, and I see them selling. They're selling courses, they're selling this, and they're selling that. And it's such a turnoff. People don't want to see the selling. Like, if you look at Kim Kardashian, like, people know she has all these back end products, but she's not on her Instagram selling anything. She doesn't have to. And so I think when people start selling too early, their engagement drops off, and it's the worst thing they could do for their page.
Yeah. They're building courses really fast.
Yeah. It's okay if you're doing that stuff, but you don't need to be shoving it down people's throats. You don't need to be like advertising all the time and selling. People just, they're turned off. I think give, Gary Vee has that concept, give, but it's give and keep giving. I'm not going to sell anything, and I'm just going to keep building my audience. I'm going to build it through this new show, and I'm going to bring on some big players, and I'm going to double, triple down on the content, but I'm not going to sell anything until I build a big audience. And then guess what? Hey, I got some back end products. People know I raise money to buy boutique hotels. I don't need to sell that though. You know what I mean? And if they're interested, they'll reach out. It's as simple as that.
The interesting thing is, as you're bringing on now, obviously, home network TV stars, NFL stars, all of that good stuff, you now have a unfiltered hour with them to talk about everything that you're doing, plus the pre and post show shenanigans that happen.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that network is loaded beyond belief.
Yeah.
And it just ends up being an interesting partnership builder.
Yeah.
Without even needing it to be.
Yeah. Because guess what? If we get into a bunch of boutique hotel deals that are like, man, we need someone to come in and help us raise capital, Tarek will pick up my phone call now, and he's got a capital raising company. I'm sure he would love to buy some boutique hotels with us. So the opportunities are endless just from that 1 hour podcast episode. And also the other thing is this: if you have these like really engaging conversations and just record 1 or 2 podcasts a week, there's your content for a whole week. Like, you can just chop that up into 20 reels, and that's all your content. You don't even need to record content anymore. You know what I mean?
Oh, and one thing before, I know we said we switch off the social media, but I feel like there's a lot of the 3 things I did, 5 things to avoid. But the new genre of next year, I know for sure, will just be recording your sales calls. The fly on the wall, almost that Clubhouse experience, but now you're just the third party looking in. And it's also easier for people to produce because they're not awkward talking to a camera. They're just talking to somebody else. And it's so natural that way.
100%, man.
Okay, the last thing, because you did bring it up, man, Pack 3 broke up.
Yeah, it's crazy. Love those guys to death. They're great. We're still friends. They showed up at the meetup last night. We were hanging out for a while. It was good to see them. Nothing but love for those guys, man. It's been going on for about a year or so. I just noticed we're becoming less and less aligned in terms of like vision and how we're going to get from point A to point B. And I was at BPCon last week, and I was talking to a couple people in the industry that I respect, and they were like, dude, we cut partners all the time if they're no longer aligned. And so I just woke up the morning after BPCon. I was out popping bottles with all the Bigger Pockets guys on Tuesday night. I woke up early on Wednesday morning, and I had never felt as clear as my mind did that morning. And I was like, I knew exactly the moves I needed to make, decided to end that partnership. And I'm going to do my own thing. I'm starting Summers Capital. I've already made 3 hires. I'm hiring a full-time acquisition specialist, hiring an investor relations person, and also hiring an asset manager. And I'm going to give everyone on my team equity in all these deals that we buy together. And we're going to win this thing together, and we're going to go for it. And I think the biggest disconnect was I wanted to hire and scale and really go for it. And they wanted to go a little bit slower than that. They didn't want to hire. It's all good. I wish them nothing but the best. I will genuinely be rooting for those guys. They're great guys, and I love them to death. We're going to continue operating the assets that we have together. We're going to continue to be friends. We're just not going to be buying deals together. And that's it.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. And I know it's tough. It's weird, but
yeah. And I encourage your audience. Yeah. And I encourage your audience or anyone listening, man, like if there is something in your life right now that is no longer aligned with where you're going tomorrow, I encourage you to take action, because at the end of the day, we can all die tomorrow. And I think when you die, I think the only thing you can ask for is that you gave yourself all the opportunities and resources required to reach your full potential in life. And that's all we could ask for at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's really smart. I like that a lot. So, what are you looking for right now, Rich? You're looking for boutique hotels. You're hiring a couple people.
Yeah.
What do you need?
Man, I need deal flow. I need investors. We need money. We need the deals. I got the team. We got the operations. That's it, my man. That's it.
Okay. So if anyone who's listening knows of a boutique hotel that is run down and has a lot of value add, obviously his team
Yeah.
is amazing. If you're looking to get into a boutique hotel deal, then make sure to hit up Rich. Rich, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on social media. I'm pretty active on Instagram. My handle is at rich_summers. That's SOMERF. If you want to learn more about our company and buying boutique hotels, it's summerscapital.com. And then also our management company is fortunecribs.com. And yeah, that's it, man. I appreciate you having me on the show. It's great to finally connect virtually, at least. And hopefully we'll get you down here to San Diego on the yachts.
Yeah, look at that. We talk about the power of social media, random DMs on Instagram led to a podcast guest, and now all of a sudden I have a yacht invite. So if you want a yacht invite too, I guess you got to post a few hundred pieces of content and maybe you can get one. Thanks, Rich. I appreciate it, man. And
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate you, my man.
That's crazy. If you needed an excuse to start posting on social media, I hope you got it in this episode. If you want to learn more about what Rich is doing, make sure to follow him down on the socials. That's all linked down below. If you listen to this on audio only podcast, and jump on YouTube so you can see everything that he was talking about, including his office tour, because that's the last time you'll see it. Thank you all so much. And then don't forget to subscribe, please, because that would mean a lot. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you on the next one.